Hey everyone, and welcome to Potomac Local Live. I'm Uriah Kaiser. I'm the publisher of Potomac Local News. Today we're talking with Prince William County Supervisor Yesli Vega, and we're excited to have her. She is going to be talking with us about recent crime in the county, the trends that we're seeing in the county, and where we will go from there in terms of how police are dealing with the crime and how they're handling that. Um, and we'll get into some other discussions, probably about the recent actions of the Board of Supervisors, including a plan to add to pay um, to pay panhandlers who are in the county. We'll get her opinion on that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her on. Supervisor Vega, thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm happy to be on with you, Uriah.
We've been talking about doing this for a while, and here we are. So thank you for making time to come on. You have been getting headlines here recently. You've been in the news questioning why one of the five suspects in this shooting that occurred earlier this month at Manassas Mall was out on bond, and so it raised some questions. We asked Commonwealth Attorney Amy Ashworth exactly why this person was out on bond. She did not speak in any specific terms on the case, which is common. We've seen this before in other cases in Prince William County. So, but you have somebody who is now charged in a crime, in a shooting, no less, where two people were shot, and they were out on bond only after committing another crime late last year. What do you make of all that?
Well, I guess that's the $1 million question, right? And the question that a lot of folks here in Prince William County want an answer to. Why is it that these violent offenders keep getting released into our communities? And when you look at every single case that has happened within recent weeks, recent months, recent years, there's a reoccurring pattern. And there's, quite frankly, no denying that we have a revolving door of justice here in Prince William County. And I think that the general public deserves answers. And I would like for the opportunity, to see that day where, chief prosecutor does provide those answers to the general public, because there is grave concern. And I personally am concerned myself, Uriah. I am a mother of two. In fact, just a day before the shooting at the Manassas Mall, I was there with my two kids. And so, it's happening in our backyards. It's happening very close to home, and it's concerning and it's alarming.
Mute my mic. We've seen this very serious situation in late last year in December, where Justin Burns was killed while walking across Center Street in downtown Manassas, and the person who they arrested, they released him not once but twice. They put him in jail for the first 24 hours and then released him. And then a few months later, I believe it was in the March timeframe, early March, they arrested him again, brought him in, and then yet released him again earlier. And so we've been covering that. We've seen this sort of, as you noted, it revolving door, which makes me. And then I don't remember if it was 2023 or 2022, but we had a shooting at Cheshire Station right outside the Safeway there, and the kid that did it was put out on bond. He wasn't even jailed at all. He never saw jail time, and I believe that was a first for Prince William County. What you got to wonder, what's the mood of the police officers who go out there every day and chase the bad guys and make the arrests, to only have them turn around and see that the people who they've charged with serious crimes like shootings and even homicide released the next day?
Well, it's one of frustration, that's for sure. As you know, I'm still a reserve deputy with Prince William County Sheriff's Office. I have a law enforcement background, and I have very close ties to our police department, to our sheriff's office, and even at the adult detention center. So we're constantly having these types of conversations where you're doing your job. We've taken an oath to protect and to serve, and we're trying to do the best that we can. But morale is at an all-time low when you go into the courtroom and you're not supported. You don't have the backing of the prosecutor's office, and instead, all of the hard work work and time, energy, effort that not just the individual officer has put into this case, but, other forces, trying to help see this case through and bring justice to the victims and to the families, goes unnoticed, because again, we continue to see these violent offenders back out in the streets. And so there's almost a sense of, what's the point, right? You have a job, you want to do your job to your best of your ability, but at the end of the day, when you see that your hard work, it basically turns into nothing because these offenders are back out, the next day. It is in fact demoralizing and frustrating, and rightfully so.
We've talked with Amy. Well, we've interviewed via email. We haven't talked with Amy Ashworth, but she does respond to our emails, and she provides answers, broad answers. She never really provides specifics on any case. But in an interview that we did about a year before her reelection, we asked her about why there were so fewer number of people who are directly indicted from her office. So just a brief history lesson for those who may have not been around, but Paul Ebert was the Commonwealth Attorney from 1968, I believe, to 2019. He was one of the longest serving, if not the longest serving Commonwealth Attorneys in Virginia. And he indicted hundreds of people, a month. Here in Prince William County. And when he retired and Ashworth was elected in 2020, we saw that number drop from the about 300 grand jury indictments down to about 70, 75 a month. So what message do you think that sends criminals who are looking for opportunity, knowing that the numbers are so low, and given the history that bad criminals get out of jail, do you think that sends the wrong message?
It absolutely does. They know that Prince William County is soft on crime, and that they can come to Prince William County, commit crimes, and that are not going to be held accountable. And that if they are in fact arrested, they will be released in no time, so that they can commit to continue to reoffend. And again, you're right. I think it's important for the general public to understand that these are facts, right? We're not trying to politicize crime. We're not trying to sensationalize anything of the like, because none of this is anything to be proud of. But at the end of the day, it is a pattern that we're seeing. You commit crimes here in Prince William County, not just, any crime. We're talking about violent crimes, not just against people, but against property, and nothing is happening. They're not being held accountable. And so there is no denying that progressive ideologies appear to be the driving force, in my opinion, on criminal justice reform. But what we're seeing is chaos in our streets, and it's putting our communities at risk. It's putting the general public in danger, and it does not have to be that way. It does not have to be that way.
You mentioned the violent crime. We saw it jump up we increased 70% from 2019 to 2023. And I know I've been to several of these public meetings, these community listening meetings, and then you and the Board of Supervisors went ahead with this left of bang plan to reduce community crime and essentially, institute a new Office of Community Safety. And each time I go to one of these things, we always see representatives from the police department. Chief Newsom's usually there. We see the district supervisor from the Board of Supervisors and other community representatives, but rarely do we see the Commonwealth Attorney there, Amy Ashworth. So, and she is the prosecutor, and she decides what her team goes after. This on top of what we covered earlier in the year, where she threatened to withhold prosecution if she didn't get her budget increase that she wanted. And so, to our knowledge, that has not happened. I think that she may have reneged on that plan, but that made headlines. So, knowing that she's an elected official and it's her job to go and prosecute, and you're an elected official, one of 8 on the Board of Supervisors, what can you do to keep the community safe? And maybe talk more about this Office of Community Safety and what the public should expect.
Well, it's what I've been doing, from the very beginning. I believe in transparency. I believe in holding people accountable. And I try to keep the public engaged, and I try to keep the public informed, which is why I send, my emails, which is why we have a very successful newsletter. And people appreciate that. I can tell you that we get so many emails from folks thanking the Coles District Office for providing information that they can't get anywhere else. And again, I think that the public deserves answers to the questions that they have. These are not new questions, because because this is not a new issue. It didn't just start this year. We've seen an uptick in crime over the course of, literally steadily since 2020. And our own crime reports indicate that, our own statistics indicate that. And so, at the end of the day, there's a saying, and as cliche as it may sound, the buck stops with me. It's true, right? If I am the district supervisor, I am responsible for answering to my constituents on matters that I have authority over. Amy Ashworth has a duty and a responsibility to provide answers to the general public because they are, again, rightfully concerned. And so I am going to do everything in my power to continue to keep our community engaged, to continue to keep our community involved, but at the same time to ensure that we're holding the individuals in these seats, in these positions accountable. And listen, if you're not up to the task to performing your job to the full extent that it calls, then maybe you should step down, and maybe you should allow somebody that is willing to serve and to step up to the plate to ensure that we're keeping folks safe here in Prince William County while holding violent offenders accountable for their actions.
I want to switch gears and talk to you about the panhandling situation in Prince William. It's impossible to drive anywhere through, the Manassas area into Woodbridge and not see panhandlers standing on these curbs. There is a plan that was discussed earlier this summer to pay them essentially a salary to not stand in panhandle. That's a new approach, and it looks like it came out of that Office of Community Safety. The same people who are involved in that were speaking during that public meeting where they pitched this plan to the Board of Supervisors. Is it smart to pay panhandlers not to panhandle? I mean, how is that going to work?
Well, look, I asked, for some suggestions, recommendations, and county staff came and presented to the board. I'm aware you're familiar with the presentation and what all it entailed. And so, we're really trying to look for a hands-on approach. I don't believe that it's a one-size-fits-all type of approach, that we have to get creative, that we have to explore other avenues. But for me, it's about safety, right? It's about ensuring that we protect life and that we keep folks safe. And so what I've pushed for, Uriah, has been for an ordinance that allows for law enforcement to be able to prevent the passing of objects from vehicles to people that are asking, for donations on our streets. I get pictures weekly. I do share those pictures, videos that get sent to me, not just to the county executive, but to the county attorney. I do know that at one point, the county executive shared it with our chief of police, which indicated that they would, share with the team so that they can take action. But, it's something that we have to get a control of. It's not safe. It not only puts the pedestrian's life at risk, but it also puts, the driver at risk, and we're just really trying to do our best to avoid, something tragic from happening. I will say that we have a lot of services here in Prince William County. We've been working with our homeless population, trying to provide services, but there's only so much that we can do. Folks have to be willing to accept the help, to want to receive those services, but we also have to put guardrails in place, I believe, that again ultimately keep the general public safe. And that is the approach that I'm taking. We haven't formally as a board decided which way we're going to go. It's still.
But do you think it's a good idea to pay them? I mean, would you go that route?
Well, I personally know, as district supervisor, it's not something that I would support. I've received overwhelming emails and calls from folks, not just in the Coles district, but throughout the entire county, saying that that is not the approach that we should take. But again, it's on the table, and I am happy to continue to have these discussions with my colleagues so that, again, we can arrive to a more permanent solution and prevent this from continuing to happen all over our county.
We've reported some of the people who are involved with panhandling are involved with crime, and we one of the known panhandlers was involved with I believe it was a shooting in 2022, and this is up in the Ashton Avenue, sort of Route 234 near I-66 in that area. You're a sheriff, you're a sheriff's deputy. Why can't the cops just go up to these panhandlers and move them along? Tell them, hey, listen, where you're standing in this concrete median, you got all these cars whizzing by. It's probably not the safest place for you. Why don't you just go on? Why can't they do that?
Well, I mean, they can, because that instance where I told you that this information was passed along, police officers, there was a gentleman in a wheelchair, okay, impeding traffic, asking for money. And when this was brought to law enforcement's attention, they went out there and they asked those folks to leave and to not do it, and they did. But it's just a matter of time, and they were back at it again, a few days later. And so they can. It's just that we need folks at the top that are going to be willing to take action, and that is the problem that we're having. There are some forces that be that don't want to take action. They may have their reasons, but it's not that we can't. We can. However, having a traffic ordinance gives them that additional tool in their kit, if you will, to be able to implement and to enforce something more permanent, as to where they're not going to keep coming back to these intersections and engage in their continued behavior.
We got a comment here. I'm just going to show it on screen. It's not smart to pay panhandlers. It's a magnet for panhandlers in the area to come here and enriches Ann Wheeler's husband's company. So I'm not going to go into there, but that is Ann Wheeler is the former chair of the Board of Supervisors from 2020 to 2024. I would, we'll be watching, right? We'll be seeing how this progresses. And it is, it's unlike anything we've ever written about and covered before in terms of paying panhandlers not to panhandle. I want to switch gears because I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about politics. I mean, we are right in the smack dab in the middle of the most interesting political time of, I think, of our lives. What we've witnessed here in the past 2 weeks. You were the Republican candidate for the 7th district, congressional district in 2022. You spent a lot of time talking with the people who were in the know and crisscrossing the district. Right now, we have a race between Eugene Vindman, who is a very, in terms of campaign fundraising, a very wealthy guy who's collected a lot of money across the country, just running here to represent Eastern Prince William County and Stafford and Fredericksburg and so on and so forth. And you have Derek Anderson, who's a Republican candidate. What do you make of this race right now? They say Virginia is in play for Trump, but that was before, obviously, President Biden announced he wasn't going to run for re-election. So do you think all that polling is really amounts to nothing now, or do you sense that there is a change in Virginia and it could vote red for the first time in a presidential election since 2004?
Look, I do believe that we are seeing a shift. And again, I don't really rely heavily on polling. I more so rely on what I'm hearing when I'm knocking, doors, when I'm engaging with voters, face-to-face contact. And the reality is that, it takes time for folks to actually, realize that things have gotten much, much, much worse than, let's say 2022, right? And so I think that voters, have a choice to make this coming November. And in my opinion, Uriah, the contrast couldn't be clearer. We have an administration that has been failing the American people for the past 4 years, whether it be, foreign policy, whether it be the economy, whether it be, protecting our borders, securing our borders. I mean, just across the board, the facts are what they are. And I think that voters see it now more than ever. And I think an indication of this administration and all of their failures is the fact that President Biden ended up dropping out. There's a lot of, speculation as to whether or not he wanted to, whether or not he was forced to. But I think that the Democrat Party saw the writing on the wall. It's been one blunder after another. And I think that they realized that they couldn't win. And so this was their last Hail Mary, trying to save, a crumbling party, in my opinion, and an administration that has done very little to help the middle class of America. And so my, advice to voters is educate yourselves, do your homework, do your research when you're, thinking about which candidates to support. I will say, Uriah, that, I have a lot of support from Democrat voters, people that don't vote down ballot, that don't vote blue or red, regardless of who, but they're educated voters, right? They care about the issues. They care about the future of their children. They care about the future of this country. And they understand the responsibility, that they have when they go and they cast their votes. So I think that there's a clear contrast. And I do believe that Virginia's in play. But ultimately, it all comes down to the voters, right? And we are 4 months out. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no. And then it also brings into question the way that we select our candidates, right? Because the Democrats in Richmond passed laws that essentially say in Virginia, if you're going to select a political candidate, it must be done by primary,
Mhm.
no more conventions to select a candidate. So based upon everything we've seen, Kamala Harris, vice president, she is now the candidate, and she's picked up a lot of money and a lot of endorsements in the past 48 hours. But the fact remains that there is a convention that is coming where Democrats will go, and they will, and she will be the nominee, or it's possible somebody else might be. If that's the case, if the Democrats on a national level pick their candidate via convention, do you think it's time to start asking questions about why that couldn't happen here in Virginia?
Sure. I'm sure, the conversation is probably going to happen sooner rather than later. If that is the case, I personally believe in an open process where you give people the opportunity, the ability, right, to select their candidates, to have their say. I do believe that conventions are more controlled. It's a controlled environment, if you will. And my preference has always been regular primaries, but we'll see. We'll see.
Before we go, people who are paying attention, or maybe people should be paying attention, what's coming up on the Board of Supervisors. And you guys are on summer recess right now, but when you guys get back into September, things are going to start picking up and moving right through the end of the year. What should we be paying attention to?
Land use, right? Data center development seems to continue to be the topic for the Board of County Supervisors. We're doing our very best, I believe, to try to, mitigate a lot of the concerns, the issues that have been raised by the general public. I will say that it's a new board. It's refreshing to be able to reach across the aisle and work with my colleagues. And so I look forward to continuing to have those conversations. But, the bulk of the work that we do, Uriah, stems from, passing the budget, approving the budget, but mainly land use. And so that's what folks can look forward to when we come back from our summer break.
And you made it clear when you voted for the data center project in your district, which was one of the first, now will be one of the first ones on the east side of Prince William County, is that you support data centers in the outline place. I won't say the right place, but I guess there is a right place. There's that data center overlay zone that the county created, I believe, in 2017 or 2018. And so, do you still believe that's where data centers should go, within that zone?
I do. We've invested a lot of money trying to designate that overlay because of the infrastructure that's already in place to be able to support this type of development. I do know that folks have a lot of questions as to whether or not we continue to build within the overlay district, or do we put additional safeguards in place to ensure that we prevent, data center sprawl happening all over the county. And so we're having those conversations. We're again trying to do our very best to ensure that we develop this county accordingly. Growth is happening every single day. We can't stop growth, but I do think that we have to be very thorough in our actions, our intentions as to what that type of development is going to look like. And so there are a lot of conversations that are happening even during our break. So that I can tell you.
No, and I've said this 3 times, but one more question. some of these, some of these, some of these jurisdictions south of Prince William County, Fredericksburg, we just reported on last week. They're now looking at getting into data centers. Stafford, Spotsylvania, Caroline, they've signed an agreement with Amazon, and so as they sort of come up and want to get these data centers in their counties and their cities, what advice do you give them as an elected official who's been working with these data center companies for years and hearing from constituents about this very contentious topic? What would you tell them as as data centers come knocking on their door?
To ask all of the questions, to not hold back. Oftentimes we feel like perhaps not being a subject matter expert on water, on energy, power, prohibits us from asking questions, but it shouldn't prohibit anybody from asking those very important questions, to identify who the stakeholders are, to reach out to folks in the industry in order for us to have a real conversation as to the future of data center development. I think that everybody needs to come to the table and have a seat at the table and be able to have a civil dialogue as to what that all entails, because I will tell you, Uriah, that there has been, a lot of challenges here in Prince William County because maybe, we haven't reached out to the right folks, or we've only limited ourselves to speaking to certain groups. But I do think that it's important to ask questions and to make sure that everybody is engaging with one another to ensure that, you can put forth the best, project possible for whatever locality we're talking about, that is considering opening the doors to data center development.
Supervisor Vega, thank you so much for coming on today and just educating us on everything that's going on in terms of the Board of Supervisors and where we stand on the rising crime rate in Prince William County. And we'll continue to report on that, the crimes that happen, but also look into what the good things that are happening. We know the police department, we're not here to beat up on them. We know they are doing some good work with crime intervention and getting out and speaking with the youth and trying to interact with them. So we'll promise to tell those stories as well. We don't want to beat up on any one person, but if nothing else, enjoy your summer recess, and we'll look for more data center talk when you guys get back in the fall.
Great. Thanks for having me, Araya. Take care.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on Potomac Local Live. If you are already a member, we thank you so much. If you are not, please go to our website, potomaclocal.com, and sign up for a membership. And that'll give you 100% access to everything that we publish. You'll get our free daily email that goes out every day at 4 o'clock with everything we put on our website to keep you up to date with the news that is happening where you live. Have a great afternoon, and we will talk soon.